Hello Oisin, this is the test for your LS430 5-speed into IS200 plug and play harness. So as you see, everything inside the ECU box is plugged straight in. You've got your 3 plugs there. We've got our patch resin there from the IS200 plugs to the ECU. Obviously the whole thing bolts onto the harness itself. Alright, these are your noise filters. They go over to your noise filter that should be bolted onto your engine here. Alright. Going around the back, you've got your starter harness underneath, which plugs into the top here, and that's obviously your power cable, which will then go onto the positive of your battery, in this case over here. All right, coming on the other side, again pretty standard, everything in there, noise filter that goes up to the top there. Again, it'll be bolted onto your engine, your inlet manifold, and we're just using our test pedal on the testing harness. Obviously we've got your separate harness with your 6-pin plug on for your pedal. You've got your ACIS plug over here, so there's a little bracket that holds that into place, and obviously this one is your little DTM plug that's going to go inside the vehicle and actually plugs into your pedal. Alright, so again, coming straight down here, you've got your plug onto your throttle over there. Coming down here, you've got your plug onto your alternator. You've got your low oil level sensor that'll go into your front of your sump over here. We're using LS430 engines, that's why we've got a mid sump, mid to rear sump if you want to call it that. You got your oxygen sensor, which also clips onto a little clip underneath here if you still got that. Okay, and then you've got your MAF, which obviously we've got an LS430 air box that we're just using to test all the MAF on here. Okay, and then coming down the front, you'll have your harness section coming down here. There's your cam sensor over there. There's your TPS. There's your oil control valve over there. And then it comes down the side, goes through this little cavity here where my finger is, and then it comes down to your crank at the bottom, your oil pressure switch, but your one will be at the back there. You'll need to change it around if you've got this oil filter housing on, because this will knock against your sway bar in your car. And then we've got your aircon plug over here to plug into there. If you want to use aircon, you're going to need to swap it out for a GS430 pump, SC430 pump, or a 1UZ VVT-i aircon pump, and that'll all work. That's all wired up for you. Okay, so I've also got your alternator, which goes into here. So we're just using our cable here. It just comes along here and bolts to the alternator directly. So I'm just going to go through what we're going to test now. So we're going to test the drive-by-wire, make sure that works. We're going to test the ambient temp, which is inside the vehicle, to make sure that's reading correctly. We're going to test the charge light and the oil pressure. So that's on your dash here. So you'll see the battery light and the red oil pressure light come on. Then we're going to test the reverse by bridging the reverse switch on your gearbox harness. Then we'll test the speed sensor by giving it a signal so we can actually see the speed go up on your dash. Okay. Then we're going to move on to actually starting the engine. So what we're going to do, so before we do that, we're going to use the OBD2 machine to test your fuel pump. So we'll actually turn it on with the OBD machine. Then what we'll do is start the engine. That's going to confirm that the starter circuit is working correctly. Then we'll look at the tacho, because we use a little device here to manipulate the signal from a 4-cylinder, which is what this gives out, to a 6-cylinder for the IS200. Then we're going to test the ACIS valve, or acoustic control induction system valve. So that's this valve over here. As soon as we start it up, a few seconds I've started up, it's going to shoot down to close the 8 butterfly valves inside the intake. All right. And then what we're going to do is use the OBD2 machine to test both oil control valves for the VVT to make sure they work. And then we'll let it run for a bit so we can actually see the coolant temp start to rise. And we know that's working, and then we'll go out to the OBD2 machine and make sure that we've got no codes. So that's going to be the last thing that we'll do. All right, so to start off with, we're just going to put the ignition on. All right, so that's all on. Let's move over to you. And it's a nice sunny day, so we've got 24 degrees on there, so we know that's working, the outside temperature or ambient temperature. We're going to move over to the clocks, and you'll see we've got check engine light working as it should do. We've got battery light, we've got oil pressure light, and obviously everything is reading on the dash as it should. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the reverse. So I'm just going to bridge this plug out. That's your reverse switch plug, and as soon as I do, you're going to hear the beep. Alright, so you can hear the beep, so we know the reverse circuit's working absolutely fine. And now we're going to move over to the speed sensor. So what we're going to do is we're just going to force feed a signal down it. So what we're doing is the speed signal is like a Hall effect sensor, so we know it's got power, ground and signal. So we're using the power and ground to power the device, so we know that those connections are correct. So I'm just going to literally put it into testing mode. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to force feed the signal down through the actual device, and you'll see your speedo works on your dash. So we're happy with that. We know that the signal is working 100%. So I'll leave that on there for now. All right, so now we're going to go into our OBD2 machine. Okay, so we're already in here because it takes ages to actually get going. So we'll go to System Select. So you can see that it's picked up LS430 UCF. All right, so we want to obviously go into Engine. Right, okay, so we'll go to Data List quickly. All right, everything is there and working. So we're about 58 degrees. So you can actually see already that the coolant temp gauge is rising up. It starts rising about 40 degrees going from there. So everything else is working. Obviously engine's not started, so their idle signal's on, etc. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into active test. Okay, I'm going to whack the fuel pump. Go into that. I'm going to turn on the fuel pump quickly. I don't know if you heard the relay click, but you can actually hear the fuel pump is working now. So we're happy with that. Okay, we're going to go into active test. We're going to go to the AC magnetic clutch relay to make sure that's all wired in correctly. Yeah, so this is going to be a case of you hearing a relay going on and off. So I'm going to move the camera over to the little box by your ECU there. All right, fantastic. Okay, so that all works as it should. Okay, so next thing we're going to do now is we're going to start the engine up. All right, once we start it up, then we'll see that the starter circuit works fine because we'll do it from the key. The tacho will work on the dash. We've already set that correctly. We'll go and check that ACIS valve we spoke about. We'll quickly do the oil control valve tests. Coolant temp, well, we've already seen it going because we've obviously carried these tests out before we filmed. And we'll go and check out that make sure we've got no codes. All right, so once I start it up, it's going to be noisy. This thing does filter a lot of noise, so hopefully you can hear me over the top of it, but it's not too loud, so that should be fine. Okay, so I'm just going to the key. Oh, sorry, while I'm here, the OBD2 machine is plugging into the one that would be in your driver's footwell. Okay, so I'm not coming into any sort of separate thing. That's the one that's inside the car, so it should plug straight in and work absolutely fine. All right, so here we go. Okay, so we've seen the valve has gone down now. Okay, we're going to go in and test. So these are the oil control valves for the VVT-i. So you're going to hear a funny noise. At number 2, bank 2. Okay, so we're happy with that. All right, let's go test the drive-by-wire. Okay. All right, and we're just going to check. We're happy that the coolant is continuing to rise. And now we're going to go and check for trouble codes. And we got 0 codes. Alright, so I'm going to quickly turn that off. Okay, so as you can see, no codes for automatic gearbox. That's all been remapped out. You do have the pop and bang map on there as well. And obviously we've got everything else like better throttle response. You can see how responsive it is when I press it down. Hardly have to touch it. Okay, so in terms of when it gets to you, obviously we're going to box this all up and get on its way to you. I've just got to quickly make sure that your pedal works 100% when I'm off the camera. But basically when it gets to you, you're going to take your power cable, which is the one that comes out the back here. You're going to take that to your positive of your battery. Make sure that this little cable that goes from the battery into your fuse box here, make sure that that is also connected. So you should have 2 connections on there. That's obviously for your car, that's for the starter. On the negative side, you've got your negative battery terminal, and that is a negative cable which goes down under the battery, bolts to the body, comes down there, and then you need to bolt it onto the block to create an earth for there. While you're there, pull the battery out, take the tray out, and make sure that earth is absolutely fine. What I normally do as well is I use this little earthing point here, which the 1G used to earth to. I'll take it down here and take it to the back of the cylinder head over here. So just to show you, you've got your earths for your harness coming on here. So you've got another 2 bolt holes, and in this case a single bolt hole there. So you can use one of these extra holes and just take that 1G power cable, earth cable. If you need to extend it, just extend it and take it up to there. That should be all the earthing that is required. In terms of the alternator, obviously it's going to be over here. You're going to run along the subframe, up this side into your fuse box. That's for your alternator to charge. And I think that's about it, really. I mean, that's all you've really got to do. Everything else is just straight plug in. We've already set the rev counter using our OBD2 machine, so that's going to be accurate. And obviously, I showed you earlier when we were busy on there, you would have actually seen the rev counter working there as well. So that's absolutely fine, and we've got no dramas there. So yeah, it should be literally a case of bolt on your harness, get your gearbox section on, there's your reverse, there's your speeds, plug that all in, plug everything in here. So you've literally only got your three plugs there, your black, your gray, and your blue. You've got your 2 plugs from the existing IS200 going into there, plug your ECU in, and literally fire up from the key. And that's it. And everything else should work as per normal. So thanks for watching, and we'll get this off in a box and get it off to you. Thank you very much, bye bye.